How's everybody doing tonight? Good. Well, let's see. We're on week 7. We're going to be covering restoration this week. One of my favorite weeks as far as taking an old photo and restoring it to better than it is, whatever state that might be. You know, we all have photos around our families, grandparents, relatives that need restored. So that's the whole purpose of the lab and the take home. But if you don't have restored or photos that need restored, I'm sure folks around you that you know do, and you can definitely utilize those photos to apply some restoration this week. I know a number of you have Photoshop experience with you know, applying, you know, getting rid of red eye, getting rid of maybe blemishes. This week's in class, you'll start, but probably won't finish while you won't have time to finish it. But you at least begin starting on 3 types of labs you can choose from for the in class. One is a remove blemish lab. Number 2 is a taking and applying an avatar skin tone to Tom Cruise. Number 3 is taking and applying a scary sky to a downtown type of courthouse building. Do what now? The blemish one won't open. On the in class?
Yeah, it goes to like a go down.
Okay. Well, we'll look at that when we get there. Yeah, we'll look at that when we get there. I'll fix it for you. So anyway, we're going to have 3 options of labs to choose from. First of all, though, we're going to look at some examples here of blemishes or of restored photos and some tutorials you can find on Pixlr, which is the software I recommend to use, the online software, because I know most of you do not have Photoshop at home to work with. So you can do the in-class and the take-home both in Pixlr. If you do have Photoshop at home, though, you can use Photoshop if you want to, okay? But you don't have to use Photoshop. That's the whole point of this. So, and Pixlr, by the way, which we'll look at in just a second, is an online type of Photoshop software. Has most of the tools and utilities that you would use in Photoshop, like removing blemishes, lightening up a picture, checking the levels, duplicating layers, things like that you can do in Pixlr. What's cool about Pixlr as well is you can open up a native PSD Photoshop file and edit that file with all the layers and all the structure of that file intact. You can also save your Pixlr file in what's called a PXD format, which you can then open it up on any web browser and then edit that file and keep the layers and all of that good stuff. And so it's really nice to use, even those of you have Photoshop at home in full version of it, to have Pixlr around. That way you can do some editing on any browser that you might be at. Had anybody heard of Pixlr before coming to the class, or before having this class? Some of you I know had. And so it's a really good online Photoshop type of application. And so we'll go ahead and actually go there first, if we don't mind. If you'll go to pixlr.com, pixlr.com on your web browser. I've used them in all 3 web browsers, Firefox, Chrome, and Safari. Seems like if I was to prefer one, probably I would choose Chrome for Pixlr, but it works just as well in Firefox. I haven't seen any issues in Firefox or Chrome, either one. So it works in Safari as well. IE, I wouldn't recommend IE with Pixlr. There's just some issues on one of those lights. Which one is it's flashing? I'm ready to turn that thing off. It's like, well, maybe lights are going before me. Okay, so you'll notice you have 3 options to choose from on Pixlr. You've got Pixlr Editor is one I always use and recommend. But the other two options are kind of cool to play with. Pixlr Express and Pixlr-O-Matic. Those two actually have some really cool templates and things like that. You can fire up quickly and apply effects and things like that to your photos. It's kind of worth playing around with. Pixlr Editor is just a plain Jane editor to open up a file, make your edits, save it, done. It does allow you, just like in Photoshop, to create layers like Photoshop allows you to do, apply leveling to your images, filters to your images. And so I'll go ahead and fire it up here real quick to kind of show you what it can do. I'm going to go ahead and actually find I'll pick a photo here from the in class that we're going to be doing here. So let me fix that issue we're having in the in class, I guess, on the blemishes. Is that right?
Yeah, it's just the tutorial. It's not like the file itself.
Okay, just the tutorials having issues? Okay.
Yeah.
So the file's fine. That one. I'll actually use the blemish one, the blemish example. Nope. Back. Went too far. Okay. Let's see. Panoramic. Let's see online. I can get the right. Yeah, I'm in the wrong one. That helps to be in the right one. There we go. Okay, so you say this link here's not working.
No, the blemish one.
Do what?
The blemish one.
The blemish, okay. Oh, okay, I see. That's okay, we don't need it. I can show you how to do it. Let's go to the blemish file though. Download that. I'll download that one onto mine. If you want to watch mine, or you can do it along with me, or whatever you want to do. If you want to just watch, it's fine. I'm going to download this blemish.jpg onto my Mac, and I'm going to show you how this works. Pixlr works anyway. Okay, so I'm going to fire up Pixlr Editor. I'm going to click on that. And then I'm going to open up that blemish image I saved to my desktop here. And then I'm going to take my magnifying glass. This is your toolbar, much like Photoshop. You have most of the tools you have in Photoshop on the left side here. The menus, you'll be familiar with those if you're familiar with Photoshop. If you're not, pretty easy to use. But you've got on the edit menu, one you use a lot in Photoshop might be free transform, image. You can do image size, canvas size, flip horizontal and vertical on your image. All your layer menus are pretty much the same as you have in Photoshop. Adjusting, pretty much the same. Filters, you're limited on filters, but they have quite a few filters. Like one real popular in Photoshop would be like the Gaussian blur filter. You do have a history that should be up by default, like you do in Photoshop, where you can go back, and then different languages too. So I'm going to go ahead and use this magnifying glass. I'm going to focus in on one of the ways in Pixlr, just like in Photoshop, when you want to zoom in on something, you click on that magnifying glass, and then you can click and drag on the area that you want to focus in on. And I want a little too much on that one. I'm going to go about right there. Okay. And so I'm going to focus in on this one area here of blemishes. Now, in post-production and photography, regardless how well a person's complexion is, they're going to need post-production for the most part, regardless who they are. With the advent of HDTV and high-definition television, everybody's pores are just like, on the news or whatever, are just like front and center. So good, bad, or ugly. And so it's just there. And so, you know, don't be offended if, and make sure people you're taking photos of kind of make them feel at ease about it too. Hey, we can touch this up in post-production. Say something like that. No big deal. I have to do it on myself all the time, and my family, and you know, it's no big deal. Photographers look at my face and say it's crooked, and so you know that's me, and so you know everybody has their own little idiosyncrasies, and some people like to take their photo on different sides of their face, left side versus right side. I think mine's about the same on both, crooked on both sides, and so it doesn't really matter. But you know, you can ask the person when you're taking a photo which side's better. But then also, hey, would you know, just so you know, FYI, I do post production on all of my photos, and so if you want anything special or whatever, let me know. You can word it like that without being specific at all, if that makes sense, right? So you don't want to point out, oh, by the way, that big mole that you have on your neck, can I maybe take that out for you? You don't want to word like that. That wouldn't be good. All right. But you know, just say, hey, in post production, I can do a lot of whatever you want me to do, or highlight whatever you want me to highlight. You know, and give them some examples, things like that. And so, most people are fine with that if you're just candid with them and honest with them about it. No big deal. And I think most people are susceptible to that, and they feel fine with that. It's when you're kind of, I call it like slime your way around, or just kind of snake your way around it and do it without asking them. That's when people get offended. And so if you just up front, hey, I can do this. And one of the tools we're going to use is Healing Brush, which you also have available in Photoshop. Healing Brush is a cool tool to use for blemish removal and blemish cover up. And basically, there's a couple tips I'll show you with blemishes that'll help you. Just so you know my background a little bit, I was a graphic designer for 8 years before I became a teacher. And so I did a lot of what we're doing here, post-production type stuff. I worked for a magazine and did all their article photos and touch-up stuff for everything. So I enjoy doing it. But I also, too, in photography, every photographer I know does post-production, everyone. And so, you know, you don't have to have a background in graphic design to be able to do post-production. With the tools you have today, like Pixlr, there's no reason why you have to buy a $1,000 Photoshop program. You can just do it at totally no cost to you. Okay, so on the left side of the tools here, I'm going to find my healing brush, which is right here. If you hover over all these tools, and I recommend, like after class and this week when you're playing around with Pixlr, just kind of going through Pixlr and seeing about all these tools, what they do. If you're not familiar with it, I'll give you, there is some links to some tutorials for you on Pixlr that I definitely recommend you going over if you're going to use Pixlr. But again, if you do have Photoshop, you can definitely use Photoshop. But I would recommend you playing with Pixlr, because in a pinch, when you don't have your laptop with you and you're not at home or at work, you can fire Pixlr and do pretty much the same stuff you would do in a Photoshop environment. So, okay, I'm going to do a spot heal brush. And one of the things is when I click on the spot heal brush, you'll notice immediately it gives me a, I'll move it so you can see it, a circle. It's kind of hard to see where you're at. Somebody in the back, would you turn that light off for me? A little, whoever's back in the back, that'd be great. Yeah, just turn off the light I turned on earlier. That'd be perfect. Might be able to see it better. Yeah, I think it's, yeah, just play with it. It's one of the two. There you go. Okay, so that's okay. Just turn the other one. Just turn the other, whatever one you turned on. I need that one turned off too. Please. Thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah, those lights are tricky, I know. It always confuse me. All right, so you can barely see it on my screen here, but I'll put it up here where you can see it a little bit better. The white circle on your monitor will be a little darker than that, actually. But the trick is you want that circle to be about the circumference of the blemish, not much bigger, just right around the same circumference of that blemish. And so I want it to be, I wouldn't want it to be any larger, just about right there. And then I'll move it after I do this, and I'll come down to this one, which you'll notice is a lot smaller, and maybe I'll get one here on her neck. We'll just focus on those three. I'll do this one, this one, this one. There's other ones that we can play with, but we'll just show you how easy it is. So now I've got my brush and say, how do you resize this? I'm glad you asked. You want to go up here to the size button up here and hit the drop down. When you click the drop down, you do have to kind of move the slider and then go into your canvas. You have to do this in Photoshop too. So you get to see what the size is after you've made it. So I'll try to go back down to where it was. So about right there, that's perfect. Okay, so what I do now is I have the size the way I want it. All I'm going to do is click right here over the top of that blemish one time. And it's going to magically get rid of it. It's magic. And what's cool about this is you can actually do this on the fly with somebody you've taken a photo with immediately. And, you know, people that have had issues with acne, or they've had issues with, I think we've all struggled somewhat with it in our life, some more than others, are really appreciative whenever you can do something like this. It really boosts their self-esteem to see sometimes, you know, blemishes or things or scars or something covered up. It really makes them feel good. It really does. I've seen it just like light up people's faces whenever I've done this in front of them. They're like, wow, that's magic. Can you do more? And we just keep playing with it. Now this one down here, notice how big the circle is. I want to make it smaller. So I'm on 16 right now. I'm going to take it and I'm just going to manually come in here and make it 5. See if that's about, yeah, that's about close enough. We'll do 5. That'll be okay. I'll click right there. And I'm going to do this mole right here. I'm going to leave it at 5. So real quick, I've got this one here I did, this one here, and then this one here. Now, if I go to my history, which is nice to do when you're playing with stuff like this to see what it looked like before, I'm going to go back to the very open image that I started with and then do the first one, which is the one right by on her cheek. Then do the one up, or the one on her chin, and then the one on her neck. And so if by chance you mess something up, which that can happen, take the history and make it your friend. So if I mess this one up, this one on her neck, if I messed it up, all I need to do is click on the one right before it on my history, and I'm good. Okay, it's back to where it was, and I can redo it again. All right. The other thing I recommend is I'm going to go back to my open image. And you would do this in Photoshop as well. One of the first tricks is when you're opening up an image is you want to duplicate your layer immediately when you open it up and keep that original background or image. So I'm going to show you how to do that real quick in Pixlr. You basically just take your mouse and you're going to click on this layer. And if you notice down here on the bottom here, there's a couple icons, 4 or 5 icons. You got trash can, new layer, layer styles, add layer mask, and then toggle layer settings. We're going to do the new layer icon. I'm going to click and drag this to the new layer icon. But before I do, I'm going to double click on this lock, which allows me to rename the layer, which I'll do in a second. But it also allows me to easily manipulate it. So just double clicking on it will unlock it. Now notice I'm going to click and drag this layer to that new layer icon. It's going to duplicate it. Then I'm going to rename this one here, just double clicking and rename it to, let's rename it to original. Excuse me. And then what I do is, after I rename it to original, this little checkbox, uncheck it. And it's going to stay, you're not going to touch that one. And in Photoshop and also in Pixlr, you've got to be careful that you're on the right layer when you're editing that layer. If you're in a wrong layer, you could actually mess up a layer on accident. And so make sure you're on the right layer. So if I was wanting to edit layer 0, but my mouse is on original and I went over here and did something, it would edit original and not layer 0. That makes sense? And so this one here I'm going to rename to touch up. Okay. And then I'm going to go back and do the very same thing. Select that brush. And now make sure I'm on the right layer. And I'm going to do the original touch up. I think that was like 25 or something. We'll do 20. 20 on that one. We'll do 5 and 5, I believe, on the bottom 2. And what's nice about this is what you're going to do this week with your in-class is once you're finished with your touch-up or your after, this will be your original or before, and then this will be your after. So I can rename this one to before and rename this one to after. Okay. And then if I want to see both before and after, there's my before. I just unchecked after to see the before, and then check after, and now after shows in the forefront. Now let me talk about forefront for just a second. Wherever your layer is located on the top, it's also going to be on the top on your canvas. So layer after is over layer before. If I took and moved before on top of after, I have my old before, and you can see all the blemishes. So that's another thing you need to remember is your layers determined on the level where it's at, on top of one another or below one another. Okay? Once you get through, you might have for your the one that you're doing tonight on your in-class, you could have multiple layers for yours, but just make sure you always duplicate your image as it comes in and make a before, especially with the blemish one. There's a few of your labs you're doing tonight that you actually start out with just one little object and you just keep adding stuff, like on the doom and gloom one that we'll look at in a second. But once you get through and you're satisfied with the entire picture, one of the key tricks here too, so I can see her whole face, on the Mac keyboard, if you do a Command 0 will bring in the entire photo into the canvas to where you can view it. In a PC, if you're at home, it's Control 0, and it's the same shortcut on Photoshop. Control 0 on your Photoshop at home for Windows is Control 0 will bring it all into focus. What it does is actually bring the actual pixel size into the canvas that you're playing with. So we'll say we've worked on this for an hour. We've got rid of all the blemishes. We like what we've done. We maybe lightened it up a little bit with levels. And levels is the last thing I'm going to show you because in general, blemish is number 1 you'll do in post-production pretty much all the time. Number 2 is lightening stuff up like contrast. Maybe it's too dark, right? You take a photo, the lighting wasn't perfect or whatever, you want to lighten it up a little bit. The easiest way to lighten up photos in Photoshop or Pixlr is going into the levels of that layer. So I'm going to go into the after and click on it. And this is all being recorded, by the way, so you don't have to remember all of it. Just go to layer and, or actually adjustment, and I want to go adjust, and I can do auto levels, which I don't want to do. I want to do manual, so I want to go adjustment levels. And when I do this, you'll notice that's my histogram for this actual layer, which we've talked about. And notice from the histogram, you can notice that it's, excuse me, a little light over on this side of the picture and a little dark over on this side of the picture. Well, you can fix this easily by taking all the way to the right side this point here. Excuse me, it says 255. I can click and drag this to the left. I'll drag it too much just to show you. And so when I keep dragging to the left, you'll notice it really whitewashes it. But I want to kind of control that histogram about right there. And you'll notice what I did was I literally manually manipulated this histogram to be a more normal, nice looking histogram with a nice peak and valley, and got rid of this over here, which is a little too light, and over here, which is a little too dark.
Where'd you pick that up again?
Do I know?
Where'd you pick that up, the histogram?
Basically, you go over here to the adjustment, levels, and make sure you're on the right layer that you want to be on. Excuse me, and then you basically drag the right one over to the left. Now, if it was too, I've had to do at times where you go from left to right, but generally, you most likely need to lighten the picture up for the most part, most of the time. So generally, you're doing it just like I'm doing it. You're going into your levels, clicking on the right one and dragging it over here. on your input levels. And then that looks definitely much better than, here's the before, here's the after, before and the after, much better on brightness and contrast. And so healing brush and levels you will definitely use with almost all your photos in post-production. And then saving these images in Pixlr is real easy. To save this one, I've worked on it for an hour or two or whatever. I want to uncheck after to where before showing, go to my file menu, save it. I recommend saving it in Pixlr as a PXD format first, which keeps all your layers and everything. So I'm going to save it in the PXD format first, put it on my desktop. That you can email it to yourself, you can put it on a USB drive, whatever, but you can bring it to any other browser and open it up just like this. So first is PXD, second is a PNG format for before and after. PNG format will keep all the layers and all the opacities and colors of your image much better than JPEG will. It'll give a full quality transparent image. So we'll do a blemish.png and we'll name this one before, because that's what that one is, before.png. And put that on the desktop. So there's my before. I'll uncheck that and do after. And so these two images is what you would actually submit for the end class before and after. And I believe I have you putting it actually in your week 7 set on Foki is what you're going to do. Week 7 set on Foki for your end class. Call it week 7 end class or something like that. So that's a real quick tutorial of Pixlr. Definitely keep playing with it and you'll get better at it as you keep playing with it. I want to go back before I go into the end class though and show you a couple helps for you for this week. Let's go back to, no, I was on the right page. The second one, which is the tutorials. This one right here, Pinterest, and then Pixlr Tutorials. It'll bring you to this page. And they've got a lot of really nice tutorials here. They're video tutorials like how to properly change eye color, how to do a full face makeover, enhance eye color, how to do the iPod person effect, custom texture on a Pixlr, color replacement, Pixlr clone stamp, which is definitely well worth watching. Clone stamp's real popular in Photoshop as well as in Pixlr, where you can clone certain parts of your picture throughout. And they've got 2 or 3 really nice clone stamping tutorials. Cropping tool would be a good one. Harry Potter collage from childhood to adult. Maybe you'll like it. I didn't like that one. But all these are the ones I'm mentioning I like. Using the wand tool, that's a good one. There's a couple of those. Making a banner, which you might have to do sometimes for a web page or something. That's a good one. Then this one's actually a long one, but it's like an hour and something, hour and 21 minutes. It's 32 chapters. It's a video on basic techniques using Pixlr, and you can kind of pick and choose. And it has its own YouTube channel and website, ictpublish.com. And so this is a really good help for you as far as basic Pixlr tutorials that you can definitely utilize. The other link is photo restore examples we'll look at. We'll look at that one right now, actually from prior semesters. And let's look at some real quick. These are some things you could do, because you're in class, you're going to basically just play around to learn the tools and stuff. The take home, you're actually going to use a real image of yours or a friend or family member and restore it. So let's look at some. We'll look at, let's see, we'll start with this one. I think this is the before. I'll find out real quick. I think that's the after. Let's go next. Nope, that was the before. Okay, so let's go back. Okay, so here is the before. There's a few spots. You can't see them where you're at maybe, but there's a few white spots on the image. Few white specks here, but it's actually overall pretty good image. And that's the before. Here's the after. They got rid of the white spots, lightened up the photo a little bit. And by the way, I will be creating a brand new album for just our class here for spring 2014. Okay, let's look at this one. Eleanor, before. This is a good example. It's got a crack right in the picture, which on a lot of older images, you know, maybe they were putting a Bible over the years, which a lot of folks did years ago. Maybe your grandma did, grandpa, you know, put a lot of family photos in a big family Bible or something. And over the years, people looking at them, kids grabbing them, whatever, got bent up. Still in pretty good shape though, but it does have this little crack in the image. Everything else is actually in pretty good shape, all in all. So that's the before. Let's look at the after. Got rid of the crack, darkened it up, and actually enhanced it to make it look a little more fuller and more, you know, just more fullness to the photo actually. It's a pretty good job. Let's look at a couple more here. Find a good example. There's one of the family one. This one here, yeah, this one here is Carolyn's a good one. Okay, right down the middle of his face. It was probably, you know, on a book again, in the middle of a book, and somehow got in the middle and crimped it. And so right down the middle of white over here, broken up. And in this one, actually, you can use your clone stamp tool. Will be helpful on this one because if you notice on either side of the crack, you've got really good skin tone. And you can use your clone stamp tool from the top here all the way down to clone to the left of that crack what's white, that white line basically. And the way the clone stamp tool works is you give it a pivot point as your source, and then everywhere you click, it just replaces where you click with where that source is. And what I mean by that is, like over here, we'll say we make this our source. And in Photoshop and also in Pixlr, in order to do that, just hit the Alt key while I have the clone stamp tool on. And it makes it this is now the source. When I take my mouse in and click here, when I click on it, it's actually going to give me what I have over here as my source. And I can literally just click and drag. As long as that mouse stays where I want it to as a source, it'll fill in that white line nice, really nice. Then I might have to move it over here to this side a little bit, and then over here on this side. The lips will be hard, kind of difficult, but you can do it and, you know, blow it up to make it a little bit bigger. But that's the before, and you would definitely use a clone stamp. I'd recommend, and that's what Carolyn used to fix this one. Do I know?
Use the clone instead of the heel.
Yeah, clone stamp instead of heel for sure. Yes, you definitely want to use a clone stamp in this case, because healing is basically okay for, you know, small blemishes, things to where it's pretty much intact. Just a, you know, it's a blemish of some type. That's really, but this one's missing literally parts of the picture because of the crack. So that's where clone stamp comes into play. So here's the before. Let's look at the after of what it looked like. Pretty good job, right? Now you say that didn't take that long to do. Actually took a few hours to do that one. I think she said it took like 5 or 6 hours to get it back, and she still wasn't satisfied with it. But you know, doing photo restoration, especially if it's a family member, you want to be pretty good, pretty exact, and, you know, respect their memory and things like that. It's pretty awesome if you can restore it. And she definitely did later on. She showed me her final. It looked like it was never there, because I think on the actual image when you blow it up a little bit, you can barely see it in this one, but it was actually the original one. This actually might be the modified. It's right here in her lips a little bit. And then up here, you saw just a little bit right there. But I think it looks pretty good, just like that, as far as a before and after. What do you guys think? You know, before and after restoration, not too bad. And this was the first time ever doing it. And I know for some of you, it's your first time ever doing some type of restoration of anything, any type on a photo. Okay, we'll pick one more here. Dun, dun, dun. Let's see which one I want. How about this one? Okay, we've all had images like this somewhere in our one of our relatives. This is actually when they put the dates on the photo itself. This was September of '63. I wasn't born yet. Many of you weren't born. Notice here a lot of yellowish tint on the photo, and even on the inside, kind of a tint around it. Besides that, though, the internal part of the image is in pretty good tack. It's pretty good tack actually, nothing real tore up or nothing. And so let's see what they did with the after on this one. Pretty awesome actually. I mean, they really made a major difference from before and after. You see the green grass and the sky. They trimmed up and got rid of the extra border a little bit and made it, a little bit more normal. So again, I'll show you that's the after. Let's look at the before. It's pretty drastic in the change of that. And actually on this one, they used colorization layers where you can do a colorization. There's one of the tutorials on Pixlr shows you how to do colorization. It's kind of like what you're going to do tonight, those of you that choose to do the thank you, avatar effect, where you can colorize anything on your layer, and it keeps the natural tone and texture of the grass and everything, and that's what they did on this one. So, okay, so that was some examples, definitely to keep looking at. Then this ITC published Pixlr, I believe, is just some more tutorials for Pixlr. A lot of tutorials here that will help you. And so, like for instance, adjusting levels, like I went over, that would be good to go over again. Marquee Tool, Clone Stamp Tool, Magic Wand, Smudge Tool, Sponge Tool, Dodge Tool, Burn Tool, Drawing Tool, Bloat, Pinch. So a whole bunch of different tools that you can definitely go over on that one. So for the in-class, what you're going to do is you're going to choose the Avatar Skin Change tutorial, which basically is a Photoshop tutorial, but you can do it in Pixlr. And I'll show you how in just a second. It's real quick. And this is a part I'm going to have you do, but I know there's students that always want to take it a step further, and as a challenge, I'll definitely challenge you to do it. But basically, my intent for this part is to work on just the skin tone portion first, getting that to work properly, meaning taking it from this to this, getting that to function first, getting that done and working, and you liking it and getting it to the place you want. After that, notice you go in and clean up the stubble. That's a good one as well. And in that one, on the facial stubble, basically on this one, they use a clone stamp tool, which is good practice here. Basically, clone stamping using the Alt key in the area, and I think on a Mac you use the Alt Option key, the area of the face that looks normal, that doesn't have any, beard, and basically stubble and clone stamping till it looks like this here. So those two steps for sure you can probably get done tonight, which would be this part here, which is I'm going to show you how to do in Pixlr by using HueSaturation. And then, because I think in this step here, let's see, it has you use hard brush tool in Photoshop. Oh, using a mode color, 50%. And then just basically brushing over the area that you want to bluify an avatar. I'll show you a much easier way to do it than that.
Does it matter what way we do it?
Do what now?
Does it matter what way we make it blue?
No, don't matter to me. No, it does not matter because if you know some of you had Photoshop experience, you can do it however you want to. But I'm going to show you in Pixlr how I suggest to do it. And then definitely step 3 on the clone stamp. If you're doing this one, you can get that one in class. The hard part's definitely starting with step 4. You have to download some ears. And then after you download the ears, you're replacing his ears with the avatar ears. Okay? You're basically copying this one and then horizontally flipping it to where it looks like this. Okay, so you give him some ears. And then you take it from the ears to when you start modifying the eyebrow area here. And on this one here, they have you using a polygonal lasso tool to select the eyebrow area, and then going in and selecting that area, blowing up that layer once you've copied it, make it a little bit bigger to where it kind of blows up, you know, kind of blows it a little bit. Then step 7, you use the erase tool and brush around the eyes to remove overlapping and bordering lines. Step 8, the most difficult part is the nose. This one, you use a rectangular marquee tool, you do a filter liquefy, and then you go in and you do a warp tool brush and kind of reconstruct the nose. Step 9, again a little difficult, is a burn and dodge tool. Step 10, again using the burn tool in combination of midtone and shadows. Step 11, coming into the layers and doing the levels like I did earlier. Step 12, adding a pattern onto the face and sparkles onto the face. Step 13, taking it and now taking a little bit more touch up with the dodge tool. So finally, here's your before Tom Cruise, here's your avatar Tom Cruise. Now, I don't expect you to get all 14 steps, but I know there's 2 or 3 students in here that will definitely get all 14 steps done. There always is. But you don't have to. You can choose this one and still only do up to the ears and stop if you want to. But it is a challenge. If you want to keep going, you can definitely keep going. Now, some of you want to do that. It is a lot of fun to do, by the way. In Photoshop, it's going to be easier to do, by the way, than in Pixlr, but you can do it in Pixlr. I've had students do it. Had 2 students do it last semester in Pixlr. So let me show you real quick in Pixlr, how to do, those of you that choose this one, because you'll have the avatar to choose from, the blue sky to choose from, or blue sky to scary sky, or the remove blemish. I've already showed you the blemish, so I don't need to show you that one again. The avatar, though, let me start with a needed file, which is Tom Cruise, and show you how I recommend you doing this, which is a really easy way to do it. Okay, so it's got it on my desktop. I'm going to go into my photo editor, and I'm going to open up that image on my desktop, Tom Cruise. And I'm going to double click on this, lock, duplicate it, make this my before, and this is going to be my first layer. Okay, I'm going to hide my before. Now this is what I recommend doing. The tool I recommend using on Pixlr is click on this tool here, which is a lasso tool, and then clicking on this polygonal lasso. The polygonal lasso lets you basically click around wherever you want on your image. You have a starting point, and then when you go all the way around and end on the starting point, it selects it. I'll show you very quickly how to do this in Pixlr. I only want to select the facial tone part. That's it. So if I get a little bit of his hairline, that's okay. And this will definitely not be perfect because I'm doing it very quickly. I'm just doing polygonal lasso tool, and I'm selecting only facial tone as much as possible. Be careful on the polygonal lasso tool when you're clicking like this. If you double click, you're going to mess it up and you have to start all over again. So only one click per pivot point as you move around the image. Almost there. And you could definitely spend more time and be more exact than I am. So I'm going to select, now I'm almost getting to the first part where I started. And when you click on, when you hover over the area where you started, you'll get a marquee around it. And I should have blown it up a little bit bigger so I can see it where I started. So I'm going to have to click aimlessly here. Come on. There we go. Okay, so I have my marquee now around his face only. Make sense? So that's the part I want to turn blue. This is real easy to do. And you can do this in Photoshop too. So you can skip how they want you to do in Photoshop and do it this way if you want to, if you're using Photoshop. So now I'm going to go over here and look at the different adjustments I can do. And that's what I wanted to do is an adjustment. And I want to actually use a HueSaturation adjustment. HueSaturation actually lets you do colorization and saturation of color. And so if I do hue only first and go all the way to right, notice it takes it to a nice blue. But it keeps the skin tone, the skin texture. As I move this though, it's going to, be blue actually both sides of the spectrum. This side of the spectrum is going to be a little bit more natural than this side. Actually, this side is going to be more natural than this side. If I go into the saturation, all the way left is going to make it grayscale. All the way right is going to be a darker hue of blue or whatever color here as it goes through. Now, if you want to be real, if I go to colorize, it actually gives a really kind of oversaturated colorization, which you don't want to do. So uncheck colorize. It gives me a nice, keeps my skin tone, but at the same time gives me that nice avatar effect. And again, on saturation is the, you want a lighter blue or a darker blue. We'll do it about like that. That's fine. So I've got that. Then I'm going to go into a Command D to get rid of that, or a Control D to deselect. And so this is my original. That's my avatar. Skin color only. Okay. So that's how I suggest doing your skin tone. It's much easier to do it that way. And as you can see, it can be definitely more exact. You could actually, on this hairline, I could have went into the hair a little bit more for sure all the way around. But polygonal lasso tool is what I definitely recommend using for that. And so everything else, clone tool, clone stamp tool, I'll show you that one real quick because I don't have time to watch the video. We've already used the heat stamp tool or the spot tool. On the clone stamp tool, I can find it here. There it is. Looks like a little stamp. Notice when I put it over here, I'm going to make it a little bigger, and I'll just do this side of the face here. And I'm going to make it a little bit smaller on the brush. I'll make it like, we'll make it like 30, that's fine. Okay, so what I've got to do here is I've got to hit the Alt key, and it says here, when I did that, Control click to define the source point. So that's what I have to click. Control click instead of the Alt key. Notice when I hit the control key, it turns that little cross symbol. That's going to be my source, wherever that is when I hit the mouse, click the mouse button once. So I'm going to go in and go here, click, that's going to be my source, right there. And then when I come over here, do I have it on the right layer? Yeah, I think I do. There it is. I got it in my control click. Thought it is a source point. Too small now. Oh, I know what it is. It's command click on the Mac.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. There it is. And I want it right there, actually. Definitely not a good example. Too light there. Go back. Make this a little bit bigger. In fact, I'm going to do it on the. We'll do it that way there. That'll be my source here. It's going to be too big. Yeah, let's do 20. Get a little closer. Yeah, that's a little bit better. And so it's basically grabbing the point that I control on. I can take this opacity and bring it down a little bit too, make it maybe not as prominent. Make this brush a tad bit bigger. Oh, I like that better. Yeah, that's much better. We took the opacity down to 67, which made it a little bit less prominent. Anyway, so that's what you do. Basically, have your clone stamp will basically clone the area of the face that you're wanting to clone into that area that you're wanting to cover up. And on a Mac, it's a command click. So, avatar, one choice. Blemish is another choice. Then removing blue sky, changing blue sky to scary dark sky. You should need the tutorial on the blemish one because I've already shown you that earlier. But on the change to blue sky, this one is taking a few objects actually and putting them together into one photo. It's creating an apocalyptic tower scene in Photoshop. But you can also do this in Pixlr as well. You're copying your layer like I've shown you how to do by dragging and dropping it in your layer. Then you bring in a nice stormy sky you can find on Google, or you can actually use this one here if you want to. And then doing a HueSaturation like I did earlier with the avatar. And what that's going to do is, it says here on this one, you're going to do image adjustment HueSaturation, which is basically going to allow you to make this photo here into that. So you're basically taking that middle part of saturation all the way to the left. It'll give it that grayscale effect. Then that becomes the background of the building. Do a little bit of adjustment on brightness for the clouds. And add in a warming filter, which I don't think you have a warming filter on Pixlr, so don't worry about that one. Don't believe there's a warming filter on filter. Let me see here, I don't believe so. No. Don't have a warming filter on that one. Because this one uses the yeah, there's no warming filter on this one, so don't worry about that one. Bless you. Then you could actually, to make this warming filter effect, you could actually do a HueSaturation and maybe add a little bit of redness to the photo using, like I did in the Tom Cruise thing. I could come over here and do HueSaturation, and you could actually add in more of a reddish tint, or maybe colorize it if you wanted to, and definitely get more of a red. Reddish saturation to that cloud. You can do that. You don't have to do it exactly like it tells you to do here. As far as filter render lighting effects, on filters for that, I don't believe in Pixlr you have that. Let me get okay on that. There is a lighting effect though you can play with on this one. Let's see here. Might be the kaleidoscope one I'm thinking of. It works pretty good. Oh yeah, that was really awesome, but that's not what we want. Let's see here. Oh, no. Gamma Grove, no. No. I don't like that one. No. Oh, it's cool. That's not what I want. Because that one, I think, of wanting you to put like a pivot point of like a lighting point right in the middle, make it kind of lighter in the middle of that. Let's see here. If I can find one. Sure, no. No. Good yet. Nope. No. So that one doesn't have the filter that is used in Photoshop, so I would say don't worry about that one. Even though you could, I guess, on that, you could actually take a rectangular marquee tool and change it to circle and do like this, and then you could actually go in and adjust the layer, a layer adjustment on this one, or just do a HueSaturation on that middle part. And actually what you're going to do, I think, is make it lighter. Make it lighter like that. Let's see here. Do it this way too. Yeah, I could do it that way too with my levels. And that would bring in the lightness of it. But you don't have to do it that way. The main thing is to play with it. And then, anyway, at the end of this one, I won't read all that. All the way down to the bottom. Again, this one you're definitely not going to get done in class. Just get started. Looks like that. So you have the three objects, the sky, the building, and the little creature. And this creature can be different than this one. The building can be different, and the sky can be different, just to play around with it. Okay? So 3 tutorials you have to choose from. Avatar skin color. And remember on that one, you can get done tonight the avatar skin effect and start on the getting rid of the shadow beard. Get that done. Change blue sky to scary sky. You can basically use different objects and what it has you use there. And then I went over the blemish one. Out of the 3, easiest blemish. Second, scary sky or normal sky to scary sky. Third would be definitely the hardest, which would be the avatar skin. Okay, so just get started tonight. Whatever you get done, save it as a PXD file and keep working on it. And submit that when you're finished into week 7 in class. That's your in class take home. Okay. Let me go ahead and go to your assignment, which is really the most crucial part this week. So don't spend a lot of time on those 3 tutorials. What I mean by that is spend about at the most a couple hours, I would say, at the most, max, and then done. Okay, just stop it. Because I'm not looking for perfection on these at all. I'm just seeing that you're playing with the tools. You start playing with how things work in Pixlr or in Photoshop if you're using that. That makes sense? And give me a before and after, and that's it. Then go on to your take home, because that's what I want you to spend the most time. The one thing I don't want you to do is, this is Tuesday night, I don't want you to spend until Friday night on your in class. I don't want that to happen. I want you to be done with the in class by tomorrow, done at the most, okay? Then start on your take home, which is basically a photo. You're going to need a photo, digital or hard copy. We do have scanners in the lab if you do need to scan photos, or you can go to any store that does photo printing, and they have scanners you can use. But we have them here on campus. You guys pay for them when you pay for your tuition, and so you might as well use them. You'll basically use the image that you have and begin doing manipulation, blemish, restoration, whatever. And I've already shown you a couple of those already from prior semesters. When you're finished with your photo, before and after, you're going to email both to the address I give you in the take home. You're going to attach it, both emails, or both pictures are going to be attached separately. And the first email is going to be in the subject line is going to be before, the before one, and then this after one. Make sure you put in the subject line before or after, depending on the photo. What it's going to do is send it to a album on my Foki account to where we can all look at your before and afters next week. That make sense? Now this is, I believe, from last semester. You guys will have your own. It'll be Web 225 Fall 2014 restored photos. If you've already sent some to this one too, by the way, just resend them to the one I will be creating for this semester. Questions on that, on your in-class or take-home? Okay, so again, I know some of you are very experienced in Photoshop and you'll have no problem with this. Some of you are beginning. Either way, don't feel bad if you're just beginning in Photoshop, beginning in manipulation. I want you to have fun with the in-class. Pick one that you think you'd have the most fun with, whichever one that might be. Some of you might be Avatar. Some of you might be the blemish one. And, some of them might be the changing nice sky to scary sky. And so, and on those tutorials, they're just that, they're tutorial. You don't have to go buy them verbatim. You're not going to be graded if you go do it a little bit different. And some of them, if you use Pixlr alone, you will have to do a little bit different because it doesn't have some of the filter effects that Photoshop has. Okay? Questions?
So when is the in-class?
You want to know?
The in-class is due.
Everything's due next week. I'm just going to say everything's due next Monday when you come to class as normal. By next Monday when you come to class. So, but I don't want you to spend any more than a couple hours on your in class. Okay? So get them started tonight. Before you leave tonight, though, I've got about 20 till 9. We'll say you'll work till 9 o'clock tonight and be done, or you'll work another 10 minutes and be done, whatever you want to do. When you're finished, though, with your in-class getting it started, do save it as a PXD format. That way you can email it to yourself and keep working on it when you get home. Does that make sense? So when you get through with when you're satisfied with your start of your in-class tonight, and again, it's about 20 till 9, wherever you want to stop at, go ahead and save it as a PXD format, email it to yourself. That way you'll have whatever to pick up on when you get home, all right? And again, don't spend any more than a couple hours on the in-class and start on your take-home. Now your take-home, if you don't have one in mind already, which I know some of you already do because you've talked to me about it, you can ask family members, email them, Facebook them, get a picture from somebody, a friend. You know, students every semester say they don't have one. I tell them to Facebook, and like within seconds they have. It's just a no-brainer. Somebody in the world has a picture that they want you to restore. Okay, and it's kind of cool to be able to do it as not only learning thing, but it really does mean a lot to family members that maybe have a picture from Grandpa Joe that's been passed away for like 5 years, and they want to restore this photo of him when he was like 16 or something, and it's kind of marked up a little bit. To be able to restore something like that would be pretty awesome for a family and really mean a lot to them. So more than just a grade, it's kind of cool to be able to do that. And so this week is totally involved in post-production, which I know some of you are in photography already, and you can probably attest to every student in here. Post-production is a big part of photography, right? And so how many in here, I don't want to pick on anybody, but I know a few of you are. How many of you take photos all the time already prior to taking this class? You take photos quite a bit. You've done it for family members, weddings, whatever. Would you say that post-production is a big part of what you've done thus far when you've taken photos up to this point? Yeah, it's pretty big, isn't it? And it's one of those things where you'll get better as you go along, especially with the tools that you have. You'll just get better at it. But the ones I've shown you now on Pixlr, that's the biggest one that you'll always use is blemishes, red eye, which I didn't show you, but there is a red eye tool in Pixlr that's really great. And then the levels, the levels, manually manipulating those levels. Those three are always doing in post-production. And then one I forgot was cropping. You'll be doing a lot of cropping in your photos too in post-production. So blemishes, red eye, levels, and cropping. Those four, you're going to be doing pretty much every type of photo that you'd ever take. So I want you to have fun with the in-class, but don't spend too much time on it. I want you to really devote as much time with your take-home. Okay? And if you need help on saving anything before you leave, or wanting me to look at something, or I have a question about Pixlr or about anything about this week's assignment, just raise your hand and I might help you, or you can come up here and I'll help you up here.
I have a question.
Yeah.
On the blemish one here, every time I do a change on this, it also changes the original.
Make sure and double click on the lock and then uncheck it.
I did that, it still does.
No, you're on the original right now. You need to make sure your mouse is on the after. No, that one's not even turned on right now. You have to turn that one off, top one off, and that's your original.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yep.
This was just on top of this.
It's on top of it, so always, if you uncheck, if you went and highlighted this one, if it's unchecked, you're not going to ever see, even if you check, you're not going to see it because it's on top, the after's on top.
Okay.
Yep.
Excellent.
Yep. Okay, did you download both of them already? Or one of them? I think you just need to basically, you're going to bring it in, just go and open up that image within Pixlr. The whole image that you're about to take. Uh-oh. rest. Get some rest. Okay. Now what I want you to do is take the Marquee Tool, actually, and, well, let's take the wand tool, which is right there. Yeah, and click on the white spot anywhere. Then hit the delete key on your keyboard. And need to make sure your levels are, I need to see your layers. Layers, so bring up your layers. No, view, all the way to the right. Which is view. I'm going to view level, or layers, I'm sorry, view layers. And expand your window where you can see layers. There it is. Okay, so go ahead and bring layers up again. Let's see. We'll go back to where you were. View. The view menu. Layers. There it is. Okay. So what I want you to do is double click on the lock. And go ahead and hit the delete key again. It should bring down the transparency though. Okay, cool. Now do a Command D to deselect everything. Alright, cool. Now what you're going to do is you're going to select this here. Basically just taking your pointer here first. One to the right of that. And then move around the left one. You still, yeah, you have to get on the pointer. Okay, now do a Command D again. That was what's the button. Control D, sorry. There you go. Now you're done with it. Now what you want to do is you're going to basically grab this one. Get this here first by taking your Marquee Tool, the square one. The second tool, left side down. And let's select that whole, start on the upper left corner and drag just to select this only. Keep going down a little bit further. There. Okay. Now go ahead and do a Command C to copy this. Right, now go to the layer that you're working on, the Tom Cruise layer. Tom Cruise picture. Do Command D. Or Command D, I said D, I'm sorry. Command D is in Valentine. Command B is in Valentine. Yeah, there you go. So paste that in there. And then to resize this, go ahead and go to the Edit. Image menu, yeah, you want freestyle, freeform, edit freeform. Yep, now hit the shift key on your keyboard, hold it, and then click right here and then drag down a little bit. Keep going, right there. Stop, hit the enter key on your keyboard, okay, then move that over. You'll have to use the pointer tool. Anytime you want to move anything on this, you have to use the pointer tool. Move that over. Then you can actually bring that this layer 0 behind the background. Actually, you want to bring it, I believe I'm not mistaken, that one you're going to touch up with an eraser layer. Just kind of put it in the place where you want it, and then touch up the eraser layer. And bring it down a little more, about right in here. Keep going, yeah, right there. There you go. Now if you go back to your instructions here. Pretty close. And then this one here, actually, this here is the same here as this one. It's just duplicated. So all you have to do is go back to Photoshop or the Pixlr. And you're on this layer. Go over to the Image menu. We want to duplicate. I'm sorry, let's duplicate this layer first. Drag it to your new layer icon. There you go. Yep. New layer icon to the left of the trash can. To the left of the trash can. Look, it looks like a little paper, little thing. drag it, click and drag it right to that icon and release it. There you go. Now, let's double click on layer 1 copy and let's make that name right. Just call it right. And then the layer 1 will be left. Double click on that, make it left. Okay, now highlight for me the left. And then go over to your image menu, I believe. We're going to flip it here in a second. And we're going to flip the, no, go to the layer menu, not image, layer, one, two, more to the right. We want to flip this one horizontally, all the way to the bottom. Then move that here over. There we go. So you got the starts over, right? And then go ahead and do this so you won't lose anything you worked on. Go to the File menu and save. Make sure you save it, change it from JPEG to Pixlr, which is the very bottom on PXD format, and put that on your desktop, and then put that on USB or email it to yourself before you leave. That when you go home, you've got that to work on. Yep, just go ahead and save, and save it right to your travel drive. And then basically on any browser, you can open this up and keep working on it. Okay? But the main thing is basically when you're moving objects, using that pointer tool, that's going to help you. And then, like I said, on the instructions that it gives you, you don't have to be exact on it. Just kind of, what I generally do is tell students just look at what the final result is, and then just kind of play with it on how you want it to look. How do you what now? Oh, on Mac, you have to hit the Command key to do your source. And so, let me show you real quick. If you go ahead and let's get rid of, if you, do we have an original of that of him? Okay. Let's go here. We'll leave it just like this for now. On the center tool, what you do is basically, right here, we'll say this is our source, okay? Go ahead and hit your Command key on the Mac one time. Let go. Then, what's going to happen here is you'll notice when I press the mouse, press and hold it. Okay. That's what we'll do. Command click the mouse. You see that dot, the white dot? That's the source. The clear dot is what I'm covering up. If that makes sense. Yeah. So go ahead now, let's do Command again. And I'll click it. This is pretty good right here. Just want to click right there. And now I come over here. You notice it's way over there. And then to get this, it's going to be tricky, but basically, the trick I use, yeah, you already changed your opacity, that's good. But to kind of smooth this out, you can actually use, there's a blur tool. Click on the blur tool. It'll actually take and kind of smudge together anything that might look a little weird, kind of smooth it out a little bit. That's what that one does, that blur tool. There a little bit. Basically, when you get down to this area here with the cool stamp tool, it looks like he has some pinpoints to where it goes like right here. And so if you go ahead and hit the Command key again, press it, hold it for me. Click once, let it release. There you go. So go ahead and save that. So that's how you do a clone stamp. Yep, you're welcome. It's good. Good job. Excellent. Oh, sweet. Good. That'd be great. That'd be great. And what is it, a relative of yours then?
No.
Okay. There you go. Cool. Look forward to seeing it. How you doing over here? All right. How you doing over here, sir?
Actually, pretty good.
Yeah.
I did this here myself, trying to do it on this side. Not enough to work with over here, so I'm just gonna cut this one, flip it.
Did a little flip. Yeah, there you go. How you doing over here, buddy? Good. All right. Yeah. You're doing good. It's harder than it looks. It really is. I almost have to. Yeah, that's fine. Get started. You gotta get started. How we doing over here? That's all right. What was it now? An ear? Yeah, go to that. Go to where the ear link is.
So I did that. I think I saved it.
Okay.
So how are you?
Oh, just go to your downloads folder outside of this environment. Go to your download folder in your Mac. Just cancel out that. And just double click on, easiest way is just go into your snow leopard here. Double click on that. And then you should see the user on this one's web student. You see web student on the left side. Click on that and then click on downloads. You should see the zip file. Just double click on the zip file. It'll extract it. And you double click it into a folder. And then you'll have the PSD file and also the JPEG you can play with. Cool. And just make sure you do save the PXD file so you don't lose your stuff.
Okay.
All right. Yep. How you doing over here? Yeah, it's looking good. Real good. Yeah. Like it. Good job.
I was trying to do the avatar, but the cloning tool, I don't know.
It's hard. It is. You know, it's been a while since I've done a cloning tool on Pixlr, and you can tell I was having issues with it. So, yeah, it's not easy. A clone tool, is it? Yeah. It's one of those deals you just gotta like play with, and you get better as you go along.
Yeah.
But you know, the main thing is figuring out the source point, and then I always on a clone stamp, because it never looks perfect on a clone stamp, but you can take your blur tool and you can blur your the area that you clone stamped to make everything kind of come together nice.
Okay.
Yeah, that'll help.
That's probably where my issue was coming, because it just didn't
Mm-hmm.
sit right.
Yeah, because you're never going to get like perfect on a clone stamp, but you can use that blur to merge everything together nice and neat.
So how would I save it to?
Okay, I'll help you with that. Let me stop this